Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Effie. I really hope you're doing okay and having a great day and an amazing week. Today we are back with makeup and mythology. This is the look I created. This is the palette we're focusing on. It is the Lois Cosmetics Meet Me in the Underworld palette, and the palette itself actually links to the Greek story of Orpheus and Eurydice, and so that is the story we are telling today. I quite like this story. It is a tragic love story. Trigger warning, it does involve death, I guess. That is something I should mention. So yeah, other than that, this is the look. Let me know what you think of it. As always, everything I use on my face will be linked down in the description box. I give my opinion on this palette at the end of the video. And yeah, I'll stop talking now. Quick intros, I'm back at it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like my content, please feel free to subscribe. If you like makeup and mythology, I do these videos every 3 to 4 weeks, and there is a playlist on my channel if you would like to watch all the ones that I've done previously. Other than that, shut up Effie, let's get on with the video. Okay, so today we're doing the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, and we're using this palette here. It is the Lois Cosmetics Meet Me in the Underworld palette, and this palette is actually based around the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. I think Lois calls it a colour story with a story. So this is the palette, and this colour theme was inspired by Lois's imagination of the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. I'll give my opinions on the palette at the end, as usual. I will say this is actually my third time playing with this palette because I've already filmed this video but all the footage got messed up, and I also did one other look that's already up on my Instagram, I think. So as always, if you want to see other looks I do with this palette, please go and check out my Instagram. It's just at effies_place, and see what else I create with this palette. But I will now insert some swatches of this palette for you. Orpheus is said to be the son of Apollo, who is a god. Other stories say that he is human, but the story that I'm telling, he is the son of Apollo. Okay, cool. So, his mother is also one of the muses, known as Calliope. And because of his dad being Apollo and things like that, he is very talented at music, and when he was a boy, his father Apollo gifted him a lyre. Now I think a lyre is just a small harp. Please correct me if I'm wrong, I have no idea, I don't do music. So his father Apollo gave him a lyre, and he would play his music and everybody would come to listen, whether they were human, the wood nymphs would come. Everybody would come to hear him play because he was just so talented. And one day, when he was a young man, he was playing his music and a crowd had gathered to hear him play. And in the crowd, he spotted a young woman, Eurydice. Now before I move on to the rest of the story, I'm just going to give you a bit more information about Orpheus really. It is said that when he was gifted his lyre as a boy, he picked it up almost immediately. He was very talented musically and he could just play it so well right from the get-go, and no god or human or anybody could resist his music. When he played, that was it. Game over. Orpheus is also sort of mentioned to have taught agriculture, writing and medicine to mankind. So quite an important guy, to be fair, and for once he sounds decent. He sounds fine. He doesn't sound problematic or, you know, toxic in any way. We like that. And also, apart from being very talented musically, he was also said to be very adventurous, and is actually mentioned as being part of the Argonautic expedition, which was another Greek story It's usually called Jason and the Argonauts, I think. So yeah, I can maybe do that story in future, but it's not really important now. But yeah, either way, he just seems to be all round great. He's into music, he likes adventure. I'm assuming he's good looking, I have no idea. I think I said Eurydice was human, but I don't think she was. I think she was actually a wood nymph. He saw her in the crowd and it was essentially love at first sight. That was it. Done. And they fell madly in love to the point where they didn't really want to spend any time apart from each other, which is kind of sweet. So eventually they got married. It was a beautiful day. The god of marriage blessed their wedding. Very sweet, all great, good. The person who blessed their wedding also sort of gave them a warning. This isn't in all versions of the story, but in the version I'm telling, the person who blessed their wedding gave them a warning that basically the happiness they had right now wasn't going to last forever. I don't know if this was them saying that they knew something was going to happen or they could just sense it. I don't know. I guess if you're the god of marriage, you can kind of just sense these things. So they were given the warning that the happiness would not last forever, which is kind of sad. That's not what you want to hear on your wedding day. And this unhappiness came in the form of a man. And it was a guy, I don't know if he was a god or whatever, but he was a guy called Aristeus, I think. And he hated Orpheus. I don't know if he hated Orpheus because he wanted Eurydice, or if he just hated Orpheus and wanted Eurydice, but basically he was in love with Eurydice and he wanted her to himself. So at some point Orpheus and Eurydice are just walking through the forest, I think. Makes sense, she's a wood nymph, she would probably quite enjoy being in the forest. And I think Aristeus starts chasing them through the forest, planning to kill Orpheus, I think. I'm not too sure. It's very iffy. All the different versions have different recollections of what happened. Some say that Orpheus and Eurydice were simply just dancing in the forest. Some say they were just walking through the forest. Some say that Aristeus was chasing them through the forest. But either way, at one point when they are in the forest, Eurydice gets bitten by a snake. A very poisonous snake, unfortunately, and she kind of dies pretty much straight away. There's nothing that Orpheus can do to stop it. So I think Aristeus just sort of saw Eurydice get bitten and just left. Like, there was nothing he could do either, so he just sort of bailed. So Orpheus is not the same person he was without Eurydice. He was very upset, obviously, loss of his wife, and at some point he hatched, I need a different brush, I can't find my normal brush, and he sort of comes up with a very crazy idea. He decides that he is going to go down into the underworld and have a little chat with Hades and ask if he can just have Eurydice back. Now, it is important to note, people don't really tend to go into the underworld unless they're dead. It's the underworld, that's where the dead people go, not the living people. I'm pretty sure that there's very few stories of people making it into the underworld and back out alive. But Orpheus has decided he needs to do it, which is kind of sweet really, I guess. So Apollo decides to help and he sort of has a word with Hades. And he sort of talks to Hades and just sort of asks him to hear Orpheus out. Just give him a chance, you know. He just wants to talk to you, let him come down here because you're not going up there. Just hear him out, see what he has to say. And Hades agrees. Not always a bad guy, I guess. And so Orpheus heads down into the underworld with his weapons and his lyre and his voice, and he plays music as he goes. There's in some stories that Cerberus, who is the three-headed dog that guards the gates to the underworld, follows him along just listening to his music, which I think is so sweet. I love animals, so the idea of a three-headed dog just sounds amazing to me. And so Orpheus makes his way down into the underworld. Nobody stops him along the way. Normally there are barriers to get to the underworld if you're not dead, but nobody really stops him along the way, and he makes it to Hades. And Hades is sort of sat there. I think Persephone, his wife, who we've talked about in a previous story. If you missed that, please feel free to go and check it out. But he's sat with his wife and they agree to hear Orpheus out. And so Orpheus plays his lyre and sings, I assume. And it is said that the song he sings and plays is so sad that even Hades, the god of the underworld, the big man himself, heart of stone, deals with dead people on a daily basis, openly wept. It even said in one of the stories that I read that the song was so sad that even Cerberus, the three-headed dog, covered his ears with his paws and howled in despair, which breaks my heart. But I guess it kind of adds to the whole just how powerful his music is. And so Hades makes a deal with Orpheus. And the deal is that Orpheus can have Eurydice back, but Orpheus has to trust Hades. So Hades says that Orpheus, you must leave the underworld. You must walk out. Go. And you have to trust me that Eurydice is following you. She will be right behind you, but you cannot look back to check. Sounds pretty simple, right? Orpheus obviously agrees because he's like, yeah, simple enough. I can do that. I can leave here. When I get to the human world again, Eurydice will be right there. It'll all be fine. So Orpheus sets off out of the underworld. And essentially what I think it is that as you're leaving the underworld, it's almost like coming out of a cave. And at this point, there are quite a few different versions of what happens. So, one version is that Orpheus can't hear Eurydice's footsteps. He's walking and he's listening and he can't hear any sign that she's behind him. He basically thinks he's walking alone. And so he turns back, and for a split second he sees Eurydice and then she's gone because he looked back. In another version, he simply just doesn't trust Hades. He gets partway out, turns back because he doesn't trust Hades again, sees Eurydice for a split second before she is dragged back to the underworld because he broke their deal. The final version, which is the version I kind of like the least because it's so heartbreaking, he makes his way out of the underworld, all the way up to the mouth of the cave, and he steps out into the light and immediately turns round and sees Eurydice. However, Eurydice is still in the darkness of the underworld. She hasn't yet stepped out into the light. I am meant to be putting on a cream blush. That's not happening. Well done me. I need to go grab another blush now. Back with another blush. So, whatever version of the story you choose to listen to, I don't know which one I prefer really. I think maybe the one that he just simply can't hear her and then he looks around, because the version where he just doesn't trust Hades is a bit questionable because Hades is being nice. Hades is doing him a really big favour that he didn't have to do. He could have just turned around and been like, no, soz. But he didn't. He said, you can have her, you just have to trust me. So I don't really like that version. The version where he makes it out and just looks back too early is so heartbreaking. Like, that must be, if that's the real story and this is a real thing, that must be heartbreaking. Could you imagine? I'd cry. But anyway, no matter which version you look at, he looks too early, and Eurydice gets taken back down into the underworld. And that's it. He can't go back. Nobody has ever been into the underworld twice, as far as I know. And after that, Orpheus just sort of is done. He doesn't really have much to do. He's just sort of wandering about quite aimlessly, kind of just waiting for death, really. And he doesn't really know what to do with himself. And he never finds love again. Obviously, he was so in love with Eurydice, and he abstains from any other women for the rest of his life. And his music was no longer joyful, it was all sad now. It's a very sad story. Again, there's probably quite a few different versions of how Orpheus ended up dying in the end. But in the version I'm telling, because it just adds to the grief, really. Yeah, I know, terrible person. But Orpheus eventually gets killed by women. There is a group of women who are angry that Orpheus isn't interested in them. And at some point they take the opportunity to kill him. They apparently cut up his body and threw it into the river, and it drifted downstream to an island where the muses found him. Now, if you remember, his mother was one of the muses. So when they found his body parts, and they also threw his lyre in there as well, I think the muses gave him a proper burial, which is kind of sweet. And some people believe that his grave emanated music, which again fits because his life was music. And even when he was sad about his wife, he still played music. It was just a lot sadder music, which I think is understandable. And as with all deaths in Greek mythology, his soul descended down to Hades, and he was eventually reunited with Eurydice, which is quite a nice ending. It's a very sad story. It's obviously a tragic love story. A lot of Greek mythology stories are. But I do just feel like this one has a much nicer ending. Well, kind of. It's still sad. Like, they're both still dead at the end of the day. But at least they were reunited in the underworld, which I think is something that I quite kind of almost ish like about Greek mythology, is that I'm trying to find a brush. Why does this video kind of just feel all over the place? In Greek mythology, there isn't like a heaven and hell. Well, there's different sections of the underworld, but generally there's the underworld, and that's it. So you can be reunited with your loved ones after death. So I think that's quite nice. Am I going to put black on my eyelids? I feel like I have to try the black. Oh, I'm scared. Oh, it's pigmented. I'm finding the black a little bit hard to blend. But back to the story, okay? Let's just do our final thoughts on the story, and then we'll do our final thoughts on the palette. So, like I said, tragic love story. Personally, not one of my all-time favourites, I don't think. It is a nice story. I don't know why it's not one of my all-time favourites. It's a nice story. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly can't give you a reason why it's not one of my all-time favourites, but it is a lovely, lovely story. Yeah, let me know if it's one of your favourites. It's obviously one of Lois's favourites because she made the palette, and a great palette it is. Let me know what you think of the story. I think it's quite nice. Like I said, not one of my favourites, not one of the worst. So, I'm gonna stop recording. I'm gonna put mascara, lashes, liner, lips, whatever I feel like doing. I'm gonna sort that out and then I'll come back and we'll talk about the palette. Okay, so that is my makeup finished. So the lip gloss I have on is the Anastasia Beverly Hills lip gloss in the shade Vintage. The lashes I have on are the Eylure 157s. My eyeliner is the MUA Soft Tip Felt Liner, and I think that's everything. But yeah, this is the full look. I hope you like it. So far, I love this palette. It is stunning. It has beautiful colours. You guys know that I love pinky shades. This palette calls to me. If you follow me over on Instagram, you know that I also love greens. These aren't the greens I tend to go for. I tend to go for bright greens over anything else, but I do quite like it. The shimmer shades, stunning. I'm in love with the shimmer shades. I can't wait to use this gold shade Orpheus in some way. I don't even know how yet, but I'm going to use it and it's going to look amazing. So yeah, I love this palette. I think it was £28 and it sold out twice, I think. This is also limited edition, and I don't tend to like palettes that are limited edition just because once they go out of stock, I can't recommend them to you because you can't buy them. But if she does another stock of these, I highly recommend picking it up. I'm very happy with how this eye look came out. The shades blended beautifully. The black wasn't as easy to blend as the pinks. And yeah, that was really the only issue I had was with the black shade. But as you can see, it's a very good black shade. So I'm not too angry about it. I just know now to sort of build it up instead of just whacking it on. But that's on me, not the palette. It's beautiful. I'm very happy with how this look came out. I hope you like it too. If you did, please let me know down in the comments. Let me know what you think of the story as well. What do you think of Orpheus and Eurydice? I quite like them. I think it's a very sad story, but it's a good story. So, other than that, that is everything for today. I really hope you enjoyed it. Next week will be a non-mythology related video, and the next Makeup and Mythology video will be in like 3 or 4 weeks time. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but yes, it will be coming soon. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye.